They sent humans to a Class 0 Deathworld. Part 1. The sentence. The Great Hall of the Galactic Tribunal was cold and silent. Thousands of alien beings sat in rows that stretched upward like a mountain. They had come from 100 different worlds. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some were made of living crystal. All of them were here to watch the judgment dot. In the center of the hall stood 12 humans. They wore simple gray clothes. Their hands were bound with energy chains that glowed blue in the dim light. They stood straight and did not look afraid. Captain Park Ji-woo was their leader. She was 43 years old, with short black hair that was turning gray at the edges. Her face was calm like still water. She had served in space for 20 years. She had seen many strange things, but she had never seen anything like this court. Behind her stood her crew. Lieutenant Kim Tae-ho was tall and strong with a scar on his chin from an old fight. He was the weapons expert. Dr. Yoon Hana was small and quiet with gentle eyes. She was the ship doctor. Engineer Baek Se-woo had rough hands covered with old burns from working with machines. Pilot Shin Yuna was the youngest at 24. Her eyes moved quickly, watching everything. The others stood in a line. Oh Min-seo, Lee Jun-ho, Bang Eun-ji, Na Ji-soo, Han Do-hin, Cho Sung-gi, and Kwon My-rae. The high speaker floated down from his platform. His name was Orvillus. He was a being made of living crystal, tall and sharp like a statue carved from ice. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. Humans of the vessel Starbound Hope, Orvillus said. You have been found guilty of entering restricted Sector 12. The law is clear. The punishment is death. A low sound moved through the watching crowd. Some aliens nodded. Others looked away. Ji-woo stepped forward as far as her chains allowed. We entered this sector because we received a distress signal. We found a broken station. Inside were 37 Valori children. They were dying. We saved them. The law does not care about reasons, Orvillus replied. His crystal body flickered with cold light. The law only cares about actions. You broke the law. You must be punished. So saving children is a crime? Tae-ho said. His voice was hard and angry. Entering restricted Sector 12 is a crime. What you did there does not matter. Ji-woo raised her hand to quiet her crew. And the children? What happened to them? Orvillus paused. They have been returned to their people. They are safe. Then I have no regrets. The high speaker's form flickered again. Perhaps it was surprise. Perhaps it was anger. It was hard to tell with crystal beings. Your lack of regret is noted, Orvillus said. However, the tribunal has decided to show mercy. You will not be executed here. For a moment, hope appeared on some of the crew's faces. But Ji-woo knew better. She could see something cold in the way Orvillus moved. Instead, the high speaker continued. You will be taken to Nexus 7. You will be left there. What happens after that is not our concern. The crowd made sounds of shock. Some aliens covered their eyes. Others turned away completely. Even species that hated humans seemed disturbed by this sentence. Ji-woo did not know what Nexus 7 was. But she understood from the reaction that it was something terrible. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a planet that looked like a wound in space. The surface was black and red, covered with volcanoes and rivers of fire. Clouds of yellow gas swirled in the atmosphere. Lightning struck the ground constantly. Nexus 7 is a Class 0 Deathworld, Orvillus explained. The lowest classification. The atmosphere contains sulfur compounds that destroy organic tissue. Temperatures range from -80 degrees at night to 200 degrees at midday. The gravity is nearly twice what humans are built for. The planet is home to silicon-based predators that hunt using electromagnetic detection. No species has ever survived longer than 6 days on its surface. You're sending us there with nothing, Jiwoo said. It was not a question. You will have the clothes you wear. Nothing else. The tribunal believes this is fair. You chose to break our laws. Now you will face the consequences of a universe that does not care about your choices. Engineer Beak Siwoo laughed. It was a strange sound in that cold hall. Everyone looked at him. Something amuses you, human? Orville asked. You think you're being cruel, Siwoo said. But you don't understand humans at all. You're not sending us to die. You're giving us a challenge. Orville floated closer to him. In 300 years, we have sent 47 groups of criminals to Class 0 worlds. None have survived past the first week. Your confidence is misplaced. Maybe, Siwoo replied. Or maybe you've never sent humans before. The guards came then. They were large beings with 4 arms and skin like stone. They grabbed the humans roughly and began to drag them toward the doors. Jiwoo looked back at Orville one last time. When we survive, she said, remember this moment. Remember that you had a chance to show mercy and chose cruelty instead. You will not survive, Orville said. Humans have been hearing that since we first looked up at the stars, Jiwoo replied. We're still here. The doors closed behind them. The transport ship was small and dirty. The humans were pushed into a holding cell with no windows. The energy chains were removed, but there was nowhere to go. Armed guards stood outside the only door. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then pilot Shin Yuna broke the silence. Captain, what do we do? Jiwoo looked at each member of her crew. She saw fear in their eyes. But she also saw something else. Trust. They believed in her. They would follow her anywhere, even to a world made of fire and poison. We do what humans have always done, Jiwoo said. We survive. We adapt. We refuse to die just because someone else decided we should. The planet sounds impossible, said Dr. Yoon Hana quietly. Every planet was impossible once, Jiwoo replied. Earth was impossible before we learned to make fire. Space was impossible before we built ships. Impossible is just a word that means we haven't figured it out yet. Kim Taeho cracked his knuckles. So we figure it out. We figure it out, Jiwoo agreed. Together. The ship's engines hummed to life. They could feel the vibration through the metal floor. They were moving now, traveling toward a world of death and fire. But inside that small cell, 12 humans made a silent promise to each other. They would not break. They would not surrender. They would fight with everything they had. And somewhere deep in her heart, Captain Park Jiwoo smiled. The tribunal thought they were sending humans to their graves. They had no idea that they were actually planting seeds. Seeds that would grow into something they could never imagine. They sent humans to a Class 0 Deathworld, Part 2. First night. The shuttle dropped them on a flat plain of black volcanic glass. The door opened, the guards pushed them out, and then the shuttle flew away without a single word. They stood there watching it disappear into the yellow sky until it was just a tiny dot, and then nothing at all. The heat hit them first. It was like standing inside an oven. The 2 suns of Nexer 7 hung in the sky like angry red eyes, and the ground beneath their feet was warm enough to feel through their thin shoes. The air smelled wrong, sharp, and bitter like chemicals. Every breath burned a little. Everyone stay calm, Captain Park Jiwoo said. We need to think. Engineer Beak Siwoo was already looking at his wrist. He wore a simple digital watch that the aliens had ignored during their search. They had thought it was just a primitive timekeeping device. They were wrong. It could measure temperature, air pressure, and basic atmospheric composition. Temperature is 52 degrees right now, Siwoo reported. But the suns are going down. According to what they told us, it could drop to -80 at night. We have maybe 3 hours before the cold becomes deadly. What about the air? Dr. Yunhana asked. Sulfur compounds are present, but at lower levels than I expected. It will hurt to breathe, but it won't kill us quickly. Our lungs will adjust over time. Lieutenant Kim Tae-ho was scanning the horizon. The landscape was terrible and beautiful at the same time. Mountains of black rock rose in the distance. Rivers of orange lava flowed between them. The sky was full of lightning that struck the ground again and again. Rock formations to the east, Tae-ho said, pointing. They can block the wind. Ji-woo nodded. That's our target. Everyone move. Stay together. Watch where you step. They started walking. The gravity was heavy, almost twice what they were used to. Each step felt like carrying a person on their back. Within 10 minutes, everyone was sweating and breathing hard. Young Shin Yuna stumbled and fell. Corporal Lee Junho helped her up without a word. The ground was not safe. Some areas looked solid, but were actually thin crusts over pools of melted rock. Private and Seo nearly stepped into one before Communications Officer Bang Yoonji grabbed her arm and pulled her back. They could see the orange glow through the thin black surface. Watch for color changes in the rock, Ji-woo ordered. Darker is safer. Lighter means heat underneath. They learned quickly. Humans were good at learning. The rock formations were better than they had hoped. Millions of years of volcanic activity had created a maze of caves and overhangs. The largest cave went deep into the hillside, far enough that the wind could not reach. This will work, Hana said, examining the space. It's not warm, but it's sheltered. The suns were setting fast now. The temperature was already dropping. They could feel it like a weight pressing against their skin. 50 degrees became 40. 40 became 30. It kept falling. We need insulation, Siwoo said. Body heat alone won't be enough. Ji-woo made a decision. Everyone remove your outer clothes. We layer them on the ground and walls. Then we sleep in groups, sharing warmth. Some of the crew hesitated. It felt strange and uncomfortable. But no one argued. Survival was more important than comfort. They worked fast. Shirts and jackets became blankets. Pants were stretched across the cave entrance to block drafts. They gathered the softest volcanic ash they could find and piled it for cushioning. By the time full darkness came, they were huddled together in 3 groups of 4, pressed close like puppies in a den. Their combined body heat created a small pocket of warmth in the frozen darkness. It's working, Najasu whispered. Her teeth were chattering, but she was smiling. Humans survived ice ages, Ji-woo said. We survive without fire, without tools, without shelter. We will survive this. Then they heard the sound. It came from outside the cave. A horrible noise like metal scraping against metal. Like a knife being dragged across glass. Something was out there in the darkness, and it was getting closer. Tae-ho moved first. He grabbed a sharp piece of volcanic rock and crept toward the cave entrance. Omen Seo and Lee Junho followed him, also armed with stone shards. The others stayed back, ready to run deeper into the cave if needed. The creature appeared in the moonlight. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Long and serpentine, maybe 4 meters from head to tail. Its body was covered in scales that looked like crystals, reflecting the pale light of the 3 moons. Its mouth opened, and they saw rows of teeth made from what looked like diamond. Its eyes were hollow, empty holes that somehow still seemed to see. Silicon-based life form, Hana breathed. It's not hunting by sight. It's sensing our electromagnetic signals, our heartbeats, our nervous systems. Can we hide from it? Yuna asked. No, it already knows we're here. The creature moved toward the cave. Its body made that terrible scraping sound as it slid across the volcanic rock. It was hunting. It was hungry. And it had found prey. Tae-ho stepped forward. I'll draw its attention. When it focuses on me, the rest of you attack from the sides. That's suicide, Jiwoo said. It's a plan, Taiho replied. That's more than we had a minute ago. Before Jiwoo could argue, he was running out of the cave, shouting and waving his arms. The creature's head snapped toward him immediately. It moved fast, faster than something that big should be able to move. But humans could move fast too. As the creature lunged at Taiho, Minzio and Junho attacked from both sides. Their stone blades hit the creature's body, sliding off the crystal scales. The creature screamed, a sound that hurt their ears, and turned to face the new threats. Then Jiwoo was there. She had climbed above the cave entrance, while the others distracted the beast. She jumped onto its back, driving a long shard of volcanic glass into the soft space between its scales. Right behind its head, the creature thrashed. It threw Jiwoo off, and she hit the ground hard. But the damage was done. Dark fluid leaked from the wound. The creature tried to turn, tried to fight, but its movements were becoming slow and clumsy. The crew surrounded it. 12 humans against one monster. They struck again and again, finding the weak points, the soft places between the armor. It took 5 minutes, but finally the creature stopped moving. Silence fell. They stood there in the cold moonlight, breathing hard, bleeding from small cuts and bruises. But alive. All of them alive. Taeho looked down at the dead creature and laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just realized something important. They thought this planet would kill us, he said. But we just killed it first. Siwoo knelt beside the body, examining it with fascination. The scales. They're natural crystal. Strong but lightweight. We could use these. Use them for what? Yuna asked. Armor. Tools. Building material. Siwoo looked up with wild eyes. This planet just gave us our first resource. Jiwoo helped the injured crew members back to the cave. Her ribs hurt. Probably cracked. But she was smiling. We survived tonight, she said. Tomorrow we start to build. This planet wants us dead. We're going to make it regret that. They dragged the creature's body into the cave. The meat inside its crystal shell was strange, but it was protein. It was food. Dr. Hana tested it carefully before allowing anyone to eat. That night, they slept with full stomachs for the first time since their capture. The creature that was supposed to kill them had become their first meal. And in the darkness, Nexer 7 seemed to shiver. Something new had arrived on its surface. Something that would not break. Something that would not die. Humans had come to the Deathworld, and they were just getting started. They sent humans to a Class 0 Deathworld, Part 3. Adaptation 3. Months passed on Nexer 7. The Tribunal's monitoring satellites watched from orbit, recording everything. They had been placed there to document the humans' deaths. Instead, they documented something that made the watchers very uncomfortable. The humans were not dying. They were changing. High Speaker Orvalus sat in his private chamber, reviewing the latest data. His crystal body flickered with colors that showed his confusion and growing worry. The images on his screen should have been impossible. The humans had built a settlement. It started with the cave, but it had grown far beyond that. Using the crystal scales from dead predators, they had created walls and roofs that could handle both the extreme heat of day and the killing cold of night. They had dug deep into the volcanic rock and found underground water, hot but drinkable after cooling. They had discovered plants, strange fungal growths that lived in the shadows of rocks, and learned which ones were safe to eat. But the buildings were not what worried Orvalus most. It was what was happening to the humans themselves. Lieutenant Kim Taeho had become something more than human. He hunted alone now, at night, when the silicon predators were most active. The satellites watched him move through the darkness with speed and silence that should not be possible. His eyes had changed somehow. They could see in almost no light. He had killed 17 predators in the last month, always alone, always at night. Corporal Lee Jun-ho had developed skin on his hands, so thick and hard that he could pick up rocks hot enough to glow red. He worked the forges they had built, shaping crystal and metal into tools and weapons. Never wearing any protection. Communications officer Bang Yoonji had started hearing things. The electromagnetic signals that the predators used to hunt, she could hear them now. She could tell when a creature was coming from half a kilometer away. She had become their early warning system. Dr. Yoon-hana spent her days studying the planet's life forms. She had found 17 different organisms that could be used for medicine. She had learned to make bandages from plant fibers, painkillers from fungal spores, and antibiotics from minerals dissolved in hot spring water. Every human was changing in their own way. Their bodies were adapting to the impossible conditions. Their minds were finding solutions to problems that should have no solutions. Orvalis's aide, Trelsk, entered the chamber nervously. He was a small amphibian creature, always wet, always worried. "Hi, speaker. There is more. Show me." New images appeared on the screen. Orvalis's form flickered violently when he saw them. The humans were building something large. A structure rising from the volcanic plain, made of fused black glass and predator bone. It had walls 3 meters thick. It had watchtowers. It had what looked like a water collection system using the morning fog that appeared briefly at dawn. "It is a fortress," Trelsk said quietly. "I can see what it is," Orvalis snapped. "Hi, speaker." In 92 days, they have accomplished what takes most species centuries to achieve. They have not just survived. They have begun to conquer the planet. How is this possible? The conditions on Nexar 7 are beyond the limits of carbon-based life. The mathematics are clear. Trelsk hesitated. Perhaps the mathematics did not account for human psychology. On the planet's surface, Captain Park Ji-woo stood on the wall of their growing fortress and watched the sun's rise. Her skin had darkened from exposure to the harsh light. Her muscles had grown stronger from the heavy gravity. She breathed the sulfur air without coughing now. Her body had learned. Engineer Baek Si-woo climbed up to join her. He looked different too. Thinner, but harder, like a piece of steel that had been through fire. "The water system is working," he reported. "We're collecting 50 liters a day now. Enough for everyone, with some left over for the garden." "Garden," Ji-woo repeated, smiling at the word. 3 months ago, we were sentenced to death. Now we have a garden. The fungus grows well in the shade of the eastern wall. Hannah says it has good nutrition. Not tasty, but it will keep us strong. They stood together in silence for a moment, watching the harsh beauty of this world that had tried so hard to kill them. "Do you think they're watching us?" Si-woo asked. "I know they are. The satellites pass overhead every 6 hours. They wanted to watch us die. Now they're watching us live. Does that worry you?" Ji-woo thought about the question. "No, it gives me hope. If they're still watching, it means they're scared. They sentenced us to death and we refuse to die. Every day we survive is a message to them and to everyone they've ever threatened." Below them, the crew was busy with morning tasks. Min Seo and Han Do-hyun were training with weapons made from crystal and bone. Na-ju-soo was working on something electronic, using parts salvaged from their crashed shuttle that Taiho had found buried in ash 3 weeks ago. Shin Yuna was helping Hana sort through a new batch of plants collected from the western caves. They worked together like parts on a single machine. No one needed to give orders anymore. Everyone knew their role. Everyone trusted everyone else completely. That trust had been built through suffering and triumph. They had faced death together so many times that it had become normal. Every night brought new dangers. Every day brought new challenges. And every challenge they overcame made them stronger, Chosungi climbed up to the wall, breathing hard from the effort and the heavy gravity. She was their best climber, able to reach places no one else could. Her fingers had grown tough and flexible, perfect for gripping volcanic rock. "Captain, we found something in the deep caves." "What?" "Metal. Natural metal deposits buried in the rock. Iron and copper and other things Siwu doesn't even recognize. Enough to build real tools. Maybe even machines." Jiawu felt her heart beat faster. "Show me." The deep caves were dangerous. The temperature was even higher there, close to the magma channels that ran beneath the surface. But the risk was worth it. Sungyi led them through narrow passages, lit by the glow of molten rock, until they reached a chamber filled with gleaming, metallic veins. Siwu ran his hands over the deposits with wonder in his eyes. "This is incredible. With this, we could build almost anything. Solar collectors for energy, communication equipment, maybe even weapons that could take down those satellites. One step at a time," Jiwu said. "First we secure our survival. Then we think about what comes next." But even as she said it, she was already thinking about what came next. The tribunal had sent them here to die quietly. They were not dying. They were building, growing, getting stronger, and someday they would show the tribunal exactly what kind of mistake they had made. That night, around a fire made from burning volcanic gas, the crew gathered for their daily meeting. It had become a ritual, a time to share information and make plans. "We need to start thinking bigger," Taiho said. "We've survived. We've built shelter. We have food and water. But survival isn't enough. What do you suggest?" Quan Maire asked. She was their quiet one, rarely speaking, but always listening. "I don't know yet. But we can't just exist here forever. We need a goal. Something to work toward." Jiwu looked at her crew. These 12 people who had become more than a team. They had become a family. They had become warriors. "Our goal," she said slowly, "is to make sure that no one ever forgets what happened here. The tribunal tried to erase us. We need to make sure the galaxy remembers. How?" Yuna asked. "I'm not sure yet. But we have time. We have resources. And we have something the tribunal never expected us to have." "What's that?" Jiwu smiled. Hope. Above them, the satellites continued to watch. And far away, in his cold crystal chamber, High Speaker Orvelis began to realize that he had made a terrible mistake. He had not sent humans to their deaths. He had sent them to their destiny. They sent humans to a Class 0 Deathworld. Part 4. The Message Day. 127 on Nexus 7 began like any other. The twin suns rose over the volcanic mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. The morning fog came and went, leaving precious water in the collection systems. The silicon predators retreated to their caves to escape the growing heat. But this day would be different. This day would change everything. Technician Najisu had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes were red and tired, but they burned with excitement. She sat in the small workshop they had built inside the fortress, surrounded by pieces of salvaged technology from the crashed shuttle. Wires and circuits covered every surface. Strange crystals from the planet's caves glowed with soft light. Captain Park Jiwoo found her there just after sunrise. "Jizu, you need to rest." "I can't rest." "Not yet." Jisu held up a device that looked like a small box covered in crystal spikes. "It's finished. What is it?" "A communications array. Long range. Very long range. Using the natural crystal formations of this planet, I've managed to amplify the signal beyond anything our original shuttle equipment could do. This thing can reach anyone within 3 sectors." Jiwoo felt her heart stop for a moment. "Anyone?" "Anyone with a receiver, ships, stations, other planets, The tribunal's own headquarters, if we want. Jisoo smiled despite her exhaustion. We're not alone anymore, Captain. We can talk to the universe. The crew gathered in the main hall of the fortress. It was the largest space they had built, big enough for all 12 of them to meet comfortably. Crystal walls reflected the light from small fires that burned volcanic gas. It was still strange and harsh, but it had become home. Ji-woo explained what Jisoo had built. The reactions were mixed. Some faces showed hope. Others showed worry. If we call for rescue, the tribunal will intercept the signal, Lieutenant Kim Tae-ho said. They'll send ships to destroy us before anyone else can arrive. I wasn't thinking about calling for rescue, Ji-woo replied. Then what? Ji-woo walked to the center of the room. She looked at each member of her crew. These people who had faced death with her, who had built something impossible in an impossible place. We send a message, not a call for help. A statement, a declaration. We tell everyone, everywhere, what the tribunal did to us. And we tell them what we did in response. Engineer Baek Se-woo leaned forward. You want to embarrass them. I want to do more than that. The tribunal controls through fear. They punish anyone who breaks their rules so harshly that no one dares to resist. But what happens when people see that the punishment didn't work? What happens when they see that 12 humans survived something that should have been unsurvivable? Dr. Yoon Hana nodded slowly. It becomes hope. For everyone the tribunal has oppressed. Exactly. It's risky, Tae-ho said. The tribunal won't ignore this. They'll have to respond. Let them respond. We've survived everything this planet could throw at us. We can survive whatever comes next. Communications Officer Bang Yoonji stepped forward. What do you want the message to say? Ji-woo had thought about this moment for weeks. She had written and rewritten the words in her head 1,000 times. Now, finally, she spoke them aloud. We tell them who we are. We tell them what we did, saving those Valori children. We tell them how the tribunal punished us for showing compassion. And we tell them that we're still alive. That humans do not break. That anyone who stands against tyranny is not alone. The room was silent. Then, one by one, the crew began to nod. Let's do it, Min Se-oh said. They set up the transmitter at the highest point of their fortress, where the signal would be strongest. Jisoo made final adjustments while the others watched the horizon for any sign of danger. The morning heat was building, but no one complained. It's ready, Jisoo announced. Ji-woo stood before the small recording device. She took a deep breath. Behind her, her crew stood in a line, visible in the frame. 12 humans on a world of fire and poison, still standing after 127 days. The red light blinked on. The signal began to broadcast. This is Captain Park Ji-woo of the human vessel Starbound Hope. 4 months ago, my crew and I were sentenced to death by the Galactic Tribunal. Our crime was saving 37 Valori children from a dying station in restricted Sector 12. For this act of compassion, we were taken to Nexus 7, a Class 0 Deathworld, and left to die. The tribunal expected us to be dead within a week. They were wrong. She paused, letting the words carry across the vast distances of space. We have been here for 127 days. We have built shelter. We have found food and water. We have fought the creatures of this world and won. We have not just survived. We have begun to thrive. The tribunal wanted to make an example of us. They wanted to show the galaxy what happens to those who break their laws. They have made an example, but not the one they intended. Ji-woo's voice grew stronger, filled with fire. We are not asking for rescue. We do not need rescue. We are delivering a message to every species that has ever been crushed under the tribunal's boot. To every world that has ever suffered under their laws. To everyone who has ever been told that resistance is impossible. You are not alone. The humans are still here. And we are proof that the tribunal is not as powerful as they want you to believe. She looked directly into the recording device, her eyes burning with determination. To the tribunal, we say this: you sent us here to die. You failed. And every day we survive is a reminder of that failure. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we do not stop. The signal went out. It traveled at the speed of light across the void of space. It reached mining colonies on distant asteroids. It reached research stations in forgotten corners of the galaxy. It reached ships carrying cargo between worlds. It reached rebel hideouts that the tribunal had been hunting for decades. And it reached the tribunal itself. High Speaker Orvillus received the transmission in his private chamber. He watched it 3 times, his crystal form flickering with colors of rage and fear. His aide, Trelsk, stood trembling in the corner. "This is unacceptable," Orvillus said. His voice was no longer calm. "They have made us look weak. High Speaker, we could suppress the message, prevent it from spreading further. It is too late for that. The signal has already reached dozens of systems. By tomorrow, it will reach hundreds. By next week, thousands." Orvillus turned to face his aide. "We must destroy them. Completely. We must show the galaxy that defiance has consequences. A sterilization fleet? Yes, send 3 warships. I want that planet turned to glass. No survivors. No trace that they ever existed." Trelsk hurried away to give the orders. But even as the fleet was being prepared, something unexpected happened. Ships began to move toward Nexus 7, not tribunal ships. Other ships. A mining vessel from the Outer Rim, a refugee transport from the Valori homeworld, filled with families who had heard about the humans who saved their children. A rebel cruiser that had been hiding for years. A scientific research ship whose crew wanted to see the impossible survival with their own eyes. 1 ship became 5. 5 became 17. The message was spreading, and it was pulling people toward its source like a fire in the darkness. On Nexus 7, the humans watched their signal propagate across the stars. They could not see the ships that were coming to join them. They could not know that their words were starting a revolution, but they could feel it. Something had changed. The universe was listening, and somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, hope was beginning to grow. They sent humans to a Class O. Deathworld, Part 5. The New Beginning Day. 150 on Nexus 7. The twin suns had just risen when the tribunal fleet appeared in the sky. 3 massive warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and took position above the planet. Each ship was larger than a city, covered in weapons capable of burning continents to ash. They cast shadows across the volcanic plain, blocking the sunlight and turning day into night. The humans saw them from their fortress. After 5 months on this world, they knew every rock, every cave, every dangerous spot where the ground could break beneath your feet. This was their home now, and they were not going to give it up without a fight. Commander Dakrin commanded the fleet. He was an insectoid being with hard black armor and eyes that saw in a dozen spectrums. He had overseen 100 sterilization operations in his career. He had never failed. He opened a communication channel to the surface. His voice was cold and mechanical. "Humans, your defiance ends here. The tribunal has ordered your complete destruction. You will surrender and die quickly, or you will resist and die slowly. The choice is yours." Captain Park Ji-woo stood on the wall of the fortress, looking up at the ships that filled the sky. Her crew stood behind her. After everything they had been through, none of them looked afraid. She activated her own communicator, using the device Jisoo had built. "You're welcome to try." Dakrin made a sound that might have been laughter. "Brave words. But words cannot stop orbital bombardment. In 30 minutes, we will begin firing. Your fortress will be dust. Your bodies will be ash. Your message will be forgotten. Will it? Jiwoo asked calmly. Check your sensors, Commander. Tell me what you see behind you. Doc Ren paused. Then he turned to his tactical officer, who was making sounds of confusion and alarm. The sensors were showing something impossible. Ships. Dozens of ships, emerging from faster-than-light travel all around the planet. They were small compared to the Tribunal warships, but there were many of them. Mining vessels, cargo ships, refugee transports, old military cruisers that had been hiding in the far corners of the galaxy. They came from every direction, from every species the Tribunal had ever oppressed. What is this? Doc Rin demanded. Jiwoo's voice came through the communication channel, clear and strong. This is the response to our message. These are people who heard us and believed. People who were told that resistance was impossible and who decided to prove otherwise. The Allied fleet surrounded the Tribunal ships. They were outgunned and outmatched, but they held their positions. 117 ships against 3. The math was still against them, but the symbolism was powerful. You can destroy them, Jiwoo continued. You can destroy us. But you cannot destroy what we represent. Hope is spreading across the galaxy, Commander. And hope is something the Tribunal cannot fight. On the surface of Nexus 7, the humans had prepared their own surprise. For weeks, Engineer Beak Siwoo had been working on something in the deep caves, using the metal deposits they had discovered. Now his work was complete. Buried beneath the volcanic plain were dozens of devices, each one packed with minerals that could create massive electromagnetic pulses when ignited. Now, Jiwoo ordered. Siwoo triggered the devices. The electromagnetic wave hit the first warship like a fist. Every electrical system on the ship died at once. Lights went dark. Engines stopped. Life support failed. The massive vessel began to fall toward the planet, dragged down by Nexus 7's heavy gravity. The ship crashed into the volcanic plain 5 kilometers from the fortress. It hit the ground so hard that it split in half. Secondary explosions followed as fuel tanks ruptured. The crew managed to evacuate in escape pods, but the ship itself was finished. One down, Taiho said from his position on the wall. The second warship tried to retreat to a higher orbit, away from the EMP weapons. But that brought it closer to the Allied fleet. A rebel cruiser commanded by a being named Voss, who had lost his family to Tribunal justice 20 years ago, opened fire with everything he had. Other ships joined him. The warship shields held at first, but they were designed to handle one enemy, not 50. When the shields failed, the barrage tore through the hull. The ship broke apart in orbit, scattering debris across the sky like falling stars. Commander Doc Rin watched his fleet crumble with growing horror. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be weak. They were supposed to die on this planet. They were supposed to be an example of Tribunal power, not a symbol of its failure. He still had one ship. He still had weapons. He could still destroy the surface before the Allied fleet reached him. Full bombardment, he ordered. Burn everything. But before his weapons could charge, something rose from the volcanic mountains behind the fortress. Massive creatures, silicon-based like the predators the humans had fought, but much larger. Flying creatures with wings of crystal that caught the light like living rainbows. The humans had discovered them weeks ago, living in the magma channels deep underground. They had studied them, fed them, earned their trust. Hondo Yoon stood at the edge of the fortress, his arms raised. Somehow, through patience and observation, he had learned to communicate with these beasts. Now he directed them like a conductor directing an orchestra. The flying creatures attacked the third warship. Their crystal bodies could survive the heat of re-entry. They smashed through the ship's hull, tearing open corridors and destroying critical systems. The crew tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed for other ships, not for living missiles made of diamond. Dok. Rin's command center shook as explosions ripped through his vessel. Alarms screamed. Officers ran in panic. The great commander of 100 victories stumbled and fell as his ship began to die around him. The third warship fell from the sky and crashed into an ocean of lava on the far side of the planet. There were no survivors. Silence fell over Nexus 7. The Allied fleet held position in orbit, their weapons ready but no longer firing. The volcanic plain was scarred by wreckage and fires. Smoke rose into the yellow sky. On the fortress wall, the 12 humans stood together and looked up at what they had done. "It's over," Shin Yuna said softly. "We won." But Jiwoo shook her head. "This battle is over. The war is just beginning." In the days that followed, the Allied ships landed on Nexus 7. They brought supplies, equipment, and most importantly, people. Species from across the galaxy who had heard the message and found the courage to respond. Among them were 37 Valori children, the same ones the humans had saved all those months ago. They came with their families, traveling across the stars to thank their rescuers. A young girl named Sira walked up to Jiwoo as she stood on the fortress wall. The girl had bright blue skin and large dark eyes that showed every emotion clearly. "Thank you," Sira said. "Thank you for saving us. And thank you for not giving up." Jiwoo knelt down to meet the girl's eyes. "Giving up isn't something humans do well." Sira smiled. "I know, that's why we came. We wanted to be with people who never give up." Over the next few weeks, Nexus 7 transformed. The fortress expanded into a city. Ships came and went constantly. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss the future. On a warm evening, lit by the glow of distant lava flows, the Free Systems Alliance was formally established. It was a coalition of worlds and peoples united by a simple principle. Compassion was not a crime, and survival was not surrender. Jiwoo gave a speech to the gathered representatives. Her voice carried across the assembly, amplified by the same technology Jisoo had built to send their first message. 5 months ago, the Galactic Tribunal sent us here to die. They thought they were making an example. They thought they were showing the galaxy what happens to those who defy them. They were right about one thing. They made an example, but not the one they intended. She looked out at the crowd, at the faces of 100 different species, all watching her with hope in their eyes. We proved that there is no world too harsh for humanity. We proved that courage and compassion are not weaknesses but strengths. And we proved that when people stand together, even the most powerful tyrants can fall. The crowd cheered. The sound echoed off the volcanic mountains and rose into the sky. "This is not the end," Jiwoo continued. "This is the beginning. The tribunal will not accept this defeat quietly. They will come for us again. But we will be ready, because we are no longer 12 humans alone on a death world. We are an alliance. We are a movement. We are the future." That night, the humans gathered one last time in their original cave, the place where they had survived their first night on Nexus 7. They sat around a small fire, sharing food and stories. Who would have thought? Siwoo said, shaking his head. "Sentenced to death, and now we're founding a rebellion." "Not a rebellion," Jiwoo corrected. "A new beginning." Taiho raised a cup of water from the underground springs. "To new beginnings. To new beginnings," the others echoed. Outside, the twin suns set over a world that had once been a death sentence and was now a capital. Ships orbited overhead, carrying hope to every corner of the galaxy. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the tribunal was learning to fear a simple truth that humans had known since the beginning of time. There is no world where humans cannot survive. There is no challenge humans cannot face. And there is no tyranny that humans will not eventually overthrow. The Deathworld had become a